Hi class, I thought I would go ahead and run through the Excel PMT and more formula practice assignment to give you guys some help and continue to help your learning with Excel. First of all, I just want to point out that the PMT function is the only thing that's not covered in your textbook. So everything you want to know about the PMT function will be inside this course notes document. I'm going to right click and choose open in new tab so that you can see what it looks like. And so on this page, I explain what the PMT function is, how it works, along with two other formulas called total value of loan and bank profit, which we'll explore inside this assignment. So you want to make sure that this page is handy. So when you have questions about upcoming additional assignments that use PMT, you can refer back to it. So you will not find PMT in your textbook. You will find it inside the Canvas course. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and click on the assignment, and I'm going to run through. I'm going to download the start file, and I will always have an answer key. So I'm going to go ahead and download that so you guys can see what that looks like. I'm going to open up the start file, and I will open up the answer key. So you can see that. You see there's two worksheets so that you can see the numbers and compare them and ensure that you guys are working on getting on the right track. So I'm going to go ahead and actually a new feature of Windows 11 is if you just highlight over the maximize button, you can actually pin your windows in whatever pattern you want. I'm going to go ahead and pin this here, and there's the start file. All right, I'm going to enable editing, and I have to pin it again. There we go. All right. All right, so the instructions are, I have a little hover overlay here. You guys can't see it. I'm going to move it out of the way. All right, and then here are the instructions. So we'll have the instructions open at the same time. If you want to, and I have this hover overlay. All right, so you can always zoom up your worksheet if you want to be able to see it a little bit better. You definitely don't need to be squinting. All right, so we have two worksheets in this workbook, one called PMT Practice, one called More Practice, and we have the instructions over here on the right. First thing, with any of the assignments that you guys download or work on, ones that I have created that I grade and that you turn into Canvas, sometimes the worksheets are not set to automatically show the formulas. I'm not sure why that happens, but what you can do is you can always want to come over here and on the formula ribbon, under calculation options, you want to make sure that automatic is checked. If it's not, go ahead and check it. It might be set to manual, and what that means is that anytime you enter math into the worksheet, when you press the enter key, you will not see the result until you save the workbook. So in order to see your results instantly the minute you press the enter key, you want to have automatic checked. Okay? All right, so the first thing we want to do is in cell A1, we want to insert a function in cell A1 that shows both the current date and time. Recognize that whenever you're watching this video, the date and times will be different. It just depends on when you're viewing it. All right, so in cell A1 on the formula ribbon, you can see there's all these little libraries. If you pop the arrows down, you can see all of the functions in Excel are categorized into different categories. If since my window is smaller, I could hover and I could see the names of these categories. So I'm looking for a function that gives me the date and time. So this would be in the date and time category. And there are two date and time functions I want you to be aware of. You can see there's a lot more, but we're only going to cover two. One of them is called now, and that gives you the date and time. And today, it gives you just the date. We want to date and time, so we're going to click now. You get this little function dialog box, and it's telling you this function takes no arguments. What that means is you don't have to type anything in. You just click OK, and then whatever the date and time are that matches your system clock, you can see when I'm creating this, that will be populated in there. All right. All right, the next one says format the range B3 to D3. With pink shaded cells as percentages with 2 decimal places. All right, so let's do a little bit formatting, and then I'll talk about the PMT function. So I want to highlight B3 to D3. I want to convert this to a percentage. So it looks like a percentage with the percent symbol. So on the home ribbon, in the number panel, I can choose percentage. Now I want to add, how many do I want? 2 decimal places. Now, right now, I just want to point out that your cursor should be highlighted on cell B3. You can see it says 5%. But if I look in the formula bar, which actually shows you what the contents are inside any particular cell, you can see there's the 4.8%. That was actually in the worksheet. So you might be thinking, oh, it rounded the numbers. Well, it only rounded it visually. mathematically, it would use 4.8% in whatever calculations you were using. So if you want the worksheet to show 2 decimal places, you have to actually format that cell to show 2 decimal places. So, excuse me, with all 3 of these cells selected, I can go to the number panel, and you have an increase and a decrease. I'm going to click the increase twice, and that shows you the decimal places. All right. Next step, it says a format. B5 to D5 is a counting number format. That's these 3 cells, and we're just going to choose a counting number format right on the formula bar. And that gives us the $sign, the decimal places, and the whole thing. All right, you should go ahead and place your cursor in B6. So the next step, 5, says solve the monthly payment in the range B6 to D6 using the PMT function as a positive value. All right, so the PMT function is a financial function that calculates a monthly payment based on an interest rate and a term. What does all that mean? That might be confusing to some students. Well, we recognize that if you want to buy a car or a house, you don't buy an education, but you might take out a student loan. We might have to borrow money from a lending institution, a bank, or some other place, right? And when you borrow money from, let's say, a bank, they're going to, in this case, $35,000, they're going to say, okay, we're going to give you $35,000, but we're going to charge you money to borrow our money. So you're going to pay us back the $35,000 plus some more money. Okay, that's where the interest rate comes in. That's how the world works. So when you saw the PMT function, so in this case, pretend we're buying a car for $35,000. Maybe I'm going to go look at Bank of America, Wells Fargo, and Chase, and this is what their current interest rates are, and then the length of the loan, or sometimes it's called the term. These are the different terms they would give us, right? So I could use the PMT function. I could plug those numbers in. That's all I have to do is just plug the values in, hit go, and Excel will do those calculations for me, and then I could just really look and see what would make the best choice for me, which will be the best lending institution based on whatever my situation is. So the idea is after this class is over, I would hope that you would use the PMT function to go, figure out what you would pay if you were going to borrow money from an institution, so that you feel more in control when you walk onto that car dealer lot or whatever you're going to be doing, where you have to borrow money. All right. So with Excel, remember, we always place our cursor where we want the answer to appear. So I want my answer to be here in B6. So it says use the PMT function. So the best thing I can do is I can search all the function in Excel. Now, I could go to the formula ribbon, and because this is a financial function, which would be under financial, right? I could search for PMT. Where is it? Right there. However, let's say you forgot about this. I really don't use the drop downs other than for the date and time. I like to search the function library. And so what you can do is you can click this FX button, and it brings up this dialog box, and it lets you search every function in Excel. And there's over 4,000 of them. So if you know what you're looking for, all you have to do is highlight this text and type in the name of the function, in this case PMT, and I click go. And it finds every function that uses PMT in some form or another, or has some part to PMT. So I just want the PMT function itself, so I'm going to click OK, and the dialog box opens. And so the way these dialog boxes work is these functions have arguments. Remember I said earlier the date function did not have an argument? That didn't have any of these white boxes. These white boxes are called arguments. And so you want to plug in the different pieces to the function and then press OK, and Excel will do the calculation. In this class, we only ever need the first 3, rate, NPER, and PV. You don't need to worry about these 2. What's really great about the function dialog box is with any function open, when I click inside these arguments down here at the bottom, Excel is going to tell you what you need. So it's trying to help you. So you want to read this, right? So in this case, it needs an interest rate. It's the current interest rate for the period of the loan. NPER is the total number of payments, and PV is the present value of the loan. So when you solve for the PMT function, you always need 3 pieces of information. You need an interest rate, how long does the loan last, that's called the term, and how much money did you borrow. And the most important piece of information you want to know, or the most important thing you need to remember about the PMT function, is that your data, the information you pass in through these arguments, must be in months. So if you're not given the information in months, you need to do a little conversion inside this dialog box. So let's just go ahead and do the example so you can kind of see how it's broken down. So the first one says it's the interest rate. It is the interest rate per period for the loan. For example, use 6% divided by 4 for quarterly payments. So if you had to pay something back 4 times in a year, you would divide this interest rate by 4 because it's for quarterly payments. All right. So let's look out to our worksheet. What is the interest rate for the Bank of America loan? Well, it's 4.8%. But I'm never going to type 4.8. I actually want to link to the cell location so that when I write the PMT function for Bank of America, I can use my fill handle to copy it across. I'm going to have those relative cell references. So I'm not going to type 4.8. I'm going to click on B3. You could type B3 or you can click on the cell. Either way works. Now you want to stop and say, all right, is that interest rate months or years? Well, the answer is years because it says right here interest rate yearly. So I need to convert this. I need to spread that interest rate out over 12 months. And so to do that, I'm going to divide by 12. So yes, I'm actually typing that 12 in because that doesn't exist anywhere in the worksheet. Okay. And you can see it gives you the answer right here. It's 0.004%. All right, the next one is the total number of payments for the loan. How many checks will you write? You're going to write a check every month. For how long? Well, for B of A, it's for 14 years. So again, this is in years, and I need it to be in months when I put it into the dialog box. So you want to convert 14 years to months. Do not do it in your head. Do not type the answer in. Instead, you want to click on the cell that has years, right? 14 years. How do I convert that to months? I just multiply it by 12 because there's 12 months in a year, right? 1 year times 12 months is 12 months. 2 years times 12 is 24 months. 3 years times 12 is 36 months. See how that's going? So you can see it's 168 months. Do not type in 168. You want to use that cell referencing. The last piece is the present value of the loan. It's how much money did you borrow? How much money did we borrow? We borrowed 35 grand. Again, do not type in 35. You want to link to the cell locations. And then right here, you get the calculation, $286. We're going to click OK. And what happens is we got 286, and it's actually in red in parentheses. And what that means, it's a negative number. The PMT function calculates a negative number because it's a debit, because it's money coming out of your pocket. And I want you to calculate it as a positive number. All right. So the way I like to do that is you can click on this cell, and you can just come right up here, and between the equal and the P, you can type a minus symbol. And then press enter, and that's the same as multiplying it by -1. Remember, to turn a negative number positive is you multiply it by -1. I'm going to do a Control Z, undo. Another way you could do it is with your cursor on cell B6. If you click this insert function, I love this little trick. It just opens that function dialog box again, and it lets us look at all of our pieces of the function. And you can just throw your cursor in front of the PV and type a minus. Does the same thing. Okay. You could have also come up here to the formula bar and said times -1. That's another way to do it, but it's a little bit more efficient to actually just leave the minus sign in front of the PV value or in front of the equal. Either one, or excuse me, in front of the P after the equal. All right, so since I use relative cell referencing, if I double click this, you can see I've linked to all the cells, pressing escape. I can now use my fill handle, and all the formulas update. You can see all the references change. They move to the right. They updated relative to where they began. Okay. All right, pressing escape. All right. The next thing we want to do is solve the total value of the loan. And if you remember in that course notes document, I actually give you the formula for total value of the loan. It's the monthly payment times the length of the loan times 12 months. Basically, we want to know at the end of, in this case, at the end of 14 years, how much money did I pay Bank of America back? I'm going to write a check every month for 12 months for $286. I'm going to write a $286 check every month for 12 months for 14 years. And that is just multiplication, right? So I'm going to come down here to the total value of the loan. I'm going to type an equal. I'm going to write a check for $286.52 for 12 months. So I'm going to say times 12 times 14 years. That's $48,000. Okay? Because I use relative cell referencing, I copy that across, and if I double click, you can see it moved the cell locations, but it left the math the same. That is the power of Excel. You never want to type in numbers to formulas and functions if you can reference them. All right. The last one is the bank profit. That's how much money did the bank make. If I borrowed 35 grand, I paid back 48. What's the difference between the two? Again, that's right here. It's the total value minus the loan amount. So equal total value, big number, minus loan amount, small number, and I'm going to pay Bank of America about 13 grand, and I'm going to use the fill handle, right? So what's great about this is now I can look at this and I could, decide, okay, what's going to be the best loan for me based on, whatever your situation is. Most students usually say, oh, I like loan 2. I'm paying them the least amount of money and they're taking the least amount of money from me. But perhaps you might be older or in your life, maybe you don't want to be indebted for 18 years. That might be a disadvantage. So maybe I'd rather take this loan. It's only 9 years. I'm paying more money, but I can pay it off faster. What's really powerful about this worksheet is that once you have it set up, because I've used relative cell referencing, if I say, oh, it's not 18 years, it's 15 years, I could type 15, press enter, and all my values change, right? So that makes it a flexible worksheet. Control Z, I'm going to put that back. All right, I realized I never saved my file when we first started, so I'm going to go ahead and do a file save as, which is pretty bad. I probably should have saved that to begin with. I downloaded this to my download, so I'm going to leave it there. And I'm just going to go ahead and type my name, as you should type your name. I don't care if it's your first name first, last name, or last name first name, however you want to do it. Just remember, you don't ever have to type the .xls. Excel will do that for you, okay? All right, let's go to the other worksheet. Okay, more practice. All right, this worksheet is based off of the work that you're learning inside your textbook. So this is actually modeled after some of the stuff that you're doing. So the idea is that you would have done the chapter training and project before you attempt this assignment. Just make sure you're completing the work in the order I have it assigned in the class. Okay, so here we go. Insert today's date in B9 using the correct function. All right, we already learned how to do that in the last one. So on the formula ribbon, I'm going to go to date and time. And since I just want the date, I'm going to choose today, right? Takes no argument, so I click OK, and I get today's date. Again, depending on when you're watching this video, this could be this weekend, it could be next semester, it could be in a year. I don't know, okay? So just be aware of that. Excuse me. All right. All right, the next one says, calculate second quarter revenue in the range E3 to E7 using a formula or function. Autofit column E as needed. All right, so we want to know second quarter. This is the second quarter. It's just simple addition. You can just add these 3 cells. I prefer the sum function, so right here on the formula ribbon, insert function. Whoops. I could search for sum, but I didn't mean to do that. I'm sorry, I meant to go to auto sum, and I could just choose sum. And remember, you place your cursor where you want the answer to go, and Excel will look to the left or above it, and if it finds numbers, it grabs them. In this case, it grabbed the correct numbers, so I can press enter, okay? If your cell happens to look like this, you see the hashtag. What that means is, in this case, column E is not wide enough to show all the data. So that's what this is saying here. Autofit column E as needed. So if you ever see the hashtag, all it means is you just have to place your cursor between, in this case, column E and F until you see the double-headed arrow, and then double-click, and it auto-fits. It widens the column to the widest amount of information inside of it, so you can see all that. You can also click, hold, and drag if you want to make it even bigger, but the double-click will auto-fit it. Okay? All right, because we use cell referencing, I can double click my fill handle, I can drag it down, I get all of the second quarter revenue. And if we look at our answer key, you'll see that we have the same answers, okay? Mine looks bolded, so I don't ask you to bold it, but if you want to, you can. All right. Next one. Calculate the percentage increase in G3 through G7 of the second quarter revenue over the first quarter revenue. And I'm actually giving you hints. The formula is a percentage increase. Here's the formula. It's the amount of increase divided by the base. Make sure to use parentheses for the amount of increase and format the cell as percentage with 0 decimal places. All right, so I want to know, I can see in the first quarter I made 1.5 million-ish, and in the second quarter I made 1.7 million-ish. So I want to know what is that percentage increase from the first quarter to the second quarter. And the math for that is right here. Okay, so this one's going to be a formula because it's math you write yourself. So I'm going to start with an equal sign. And so the first part is the amount of the increase. How much did it increase from the first quarter to the second quarter? So that's subtraction. And I want to do that piece first. So that's why I'm putting it in parentheses. So I take the big number minus the small number. Okay, that's the increase. And then I want to divide it by the base. The base would be the first quarter. So I'm going to divide it by F3. Okay. Press enter, and I get 0.139811. So if we look at our answer key, you can see that's actually 14%. Remember, if you want something to look like a percentage, you have to format it. So I want it to be formatted as percentage. I go to the home ribbon, choose percent, and I say 0 decimal places, so that looks good. And so I can double click and you can see. And this makes sense. This quarter in the Southwest went down 12%, right? So because you can see the first quarter was 1.8, but then it went down to 1.6. That's why it's negative. All right. All right, step 4, calculate the average percent increase in A10. So I want to know what the average of these numbers are right here. So I could type out 14, I could type this plus this plus this plus this plus this divided by 1, 2, 3, 4, divided by 5, or remember, there's an average function. I'll go to the formula ribbon. It's under auto sum, and I can choose average. We learned that in the last assignment. Now, remember, Excel will look above it or to the left of it. Well, this is a date, so those aren't really numbers that it can use in a calculation, and that's definitely not numbers. That's just text. So in this case, it's waiting for you to find what cells it wants you to use, and we're just going to select this range of cells because that's what we're looking for the average of. Press enter, and I get 6%, and that matches the 6% there. All right, the last one is, and I'm going to save my file, Control S. The last one is a warning. So this one says, use the AND function, it's actually called AND, to create a warning. We want either the word true or false to appear in column I, based on the following condition. A warning should be issued if the percentage increase, that's this amount right here, is less than the average increase, that's this amount here, and, that's why I put AND in capitals, the on-time delivery, that's this guy, is less than 75%. So we're actually going to be testing two things. We're going to put our cursor here in cell I3, and we're going to use a function that's going to look at this number and compare them. And it's going to look at this number compared to 75%. And then if both of those are true, it'll put the word true here. If one of them or both of them are not true, then it'll be false. So what an AND function does is it does a comparison, and if both conditions are true, this and that, you'll get a true. Okay, it's a logical condition, or a logical function, excuse me. All right, so this is actually something that comes straight out of your textbook. All right, so I put my cursor in I3. I'm going to search for the AND function, so I'm just going to type AND in, and there it is. All right, and you can see if we read it, it says logical 1, logical 2 are 1 to 255 conditions. So I could text 255 things at one time to either be true or false, okay? And then it'll put in, if both, or in this case we only have 2, but if all the conditions are true, then it'll say true here. If all of them are true except for one, then it would say false. So all the conditions have to be true to get a true result back. All right, so let's break it down. We have two different logical tests here. So the first one is, if the percentage increase is less than the average increase. All right, so if this, so we put our cursor here, we're going to click on the cell. So because we're going to copy this function down, right, we're going to use relative cell referencing. So I want to say, is this cell less than, that's the less than symbol, this cell, okay? And the on-time delivery is less than 75%. So I click in the logical 2, I click on the on-time delivery is less than 75%. Okay, so you can see right here, it's saying this is false and this is false. So ultimately, they're both going to be false. All right, now there's one more thing I need to do. I need to change B10 into an absolute cell reference. I'm not going to do it here. We're going to get the correct answer, but I'm going to show you why the setup of your worksheet would not be correct. All right, or there's one piece that's missing. So I'm going to click OK. Looks great. I got a false here. I'm going to copy that down. And this one's a little, I just realized when I was practicing this before, I realized this might not be a good thing because students might not realize they've made a mistake because the answers match, right? But I'm going to show you something. I'm going to double click on this guy here, true. And look what happens. We can trace where the cells are. It's taking this 12% G4 is less than B11. And you can see there's nothing in B11. So actually it would be 0%, right? It's moving all these cell locations down, and then H4 right here at less than 75. I press escape. When you use relative cell referencing and then you copy that math, remember that the cell locations change relative to where they began. So you can see this cell here, the 6%, that keeps moving, right? We don't want that one to move, right? It keeps moving down. We want to make sure that when we write this function, right, I'm going to delete these, that 6% always stays 6%, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and select the cell, click the insert function. And so what you want to do, remember from the last assignment, is that I want B10 to always be B10 when I copy it. So what I have to do is I have to turn it into an absolute cell reference. If you're on a Windows-based machine, you can press the function 4 key, and that will add the dollar signs. If you're on a Mac, oops, didn't mean to click insert, you would just want to manually type the dollar sign in front of the column and in front of the row. And if you're on a Windows-based machine, you can type it in as well, okay? Now when I do that, I click OK. I don't see anything change, and I can copy this down. And again, I did get all the same answers. However, when I click on each one of these, you can see that B10 is still B10 when I've copied the function down. It doesn't change its location, okay? I know that I went through this pretty quickly, but hopefully this is going to help you complete the entire assignment and hopefully fill in some holes for you. Go ahead and let me know if you have any questions. I will upload the video into the assignment link, and I will also include it in an announcement. Thank you.